Hello, VC. Hope everyone is doing okay. This week I got into a little bit of a metal kick, and I gotta thank Captain Howdy for that. So he just recently showed his AC/DC collection and wanted to see a particular album. And it just happens to be one of the AC/DC albums that I do have on vinyl. And I'll have their complete catalog on vinyl, just a few select things. Um, but I did have one thing that he didn't happen to have in his great collection of AC/DC albums, and that just happens to be AC/DC live at the River Plate or Plate. So River Plate is River Silver. This river happens to be on the border of Argentina and Brazil, I think it is. But this is just a fantastic concert. The one thing about AC/DC is they are very consistent performers, so no matter what live album you happen to pick up, you are going to get a awesome, stellar performance, and there is not a single bad AC/DC live album in my opinion. This just happens to be the last live album that they did release. This comes in a beautiful red vinyl. And show the label here. The mastering is done by Ray Janos at Sterling Labs. So I think AC/DC went with Sterling Labs because George Marino, the late George Marino, who just passed away a year or two ago, did all the mastering for the vinyl reissues. The only downside to this whole thing was that it was pressed at United, and I think I've said it multiple times that I'm not a fan of United, but you have printed inner sleeves here. It's a 3-disc set, so just let me show you the inner sleeves. They also happen to issue this guy on a Blu-ray and DVD set, and just awesome. I mean, they happen to capture the ambience, and they're one of the bands that, yes, you got to see in an arena for them, and this was really well done, well recorded. I was really impressed with it, so highly recommend this one if you could pick it up. Now, in terms of the Brian Johnson years, my favorite AC/DC live album is AC/DC Live, which I think came out right after the Thunderstruck album, maybe. This is one of the Marino remasters that came out. This one also happened to feature very nice printed inner sleeves. And it was mastered on 180 gram vinyl, and I think these guys may have been pressed at RTI when they first came out. I was very impressed with this pressing, and it's not United. These guys, I think, sound a little bit better than the United pressings, but they were mastered and plated, or the lacquers were done at Sterling Labs, so you can't go wrong no matter where it was pressed. So AC/DC Live. Now, in terms of the Bon Scott ears, grab this. I'm hoping that someday they'll release this guy, because this is my favorite live album with Bon Scott, and this just happened to come with a Bonfire set, so maybe they will redo this. But if you haven't heard this live album from the Bonfire box set, it's definitely worth picking up just for this disc alone. And this is, as far as I'm aware, is the only way to get this particular live album. This is live at Atlantic Studios. Very good album. So, next up on the metal scene, this just happens to be a recent pickup for me. This is the Tool Undertow album. Now, they just happened to repress this, I think, several years back. The repressing that came out in, I think, the late 2000s, maybe 2006 or so, is a single disc album. This just happens to be the 1996 pressing of this particular album, and this one was spread over 2 LPs. And this is not a first press. The first press just happened to be on gray vinyl, and it was kind of a promotional thing. And then when the band started to take off, then they did this. And one of the ways you could tell you got not first pressing, but early or second pressing, is if you had this parental advisory sticker on the front. Have no idea where these guys were pressed and mastered. The sound quality on this is much better than the single disc version. Tool is a band that I really wish that they would repress their entire catalog on decent sounding vinyl. Particularly Lateralis, which is my favorite album by them. I wish they would do that. That and Anemia, and do that on black. Lateralis has been released on a picture disc. And picture discs just happen to have a lot of surface noise, but it's not bad for a picture disc. But I'd really wish they do reissue all their albums on black vinyl. So Tool's Undertow, definitely one of the essentials out of their small catalog. I think they only have like 5 albums in total. So the next thing I gotta thank Roger Coleman for, because he showed this a couple months back and I wasn't aware of its existence. And this is Ohm Live, and this was recorded in Belgium. Yeah, Belgium. Really wonderful album. Live, they are so much freer than they are in the studio. I mean, they improvise quite a bit, and this is only a 2-track album. And on this lovely mustard color vinyl, very DIY. Like Roger Coleman had stated in his video, it has this bootleg feel to it, but again, it's not bad, and I think these can be had pretty cheaply. I think I got mine for like 17 bucks, but great album. Next up, I got onto a little bit of a 90s metal kick, so Rage Against the Machine, The Battle for Los Angeles. This is one of my favorite albums by them. Again, a lot of the 90 artists, they peaked and then they all went away, so Rage Against the Machine kind of disbanded after 4 or 5 albums. With the music on vinyl releases, you always have a fairly decent package, except they're not using the original analog sources. And this one, coming from the 90s, was probably not recorded on analog. It was probably recorded on digital, but they use high-res digital for their sources. So very good pressing of this. Next up is Korn with Issues. This is the album that and Follow the Leader, which came right before this, really set these guys off. And then after this album, people kind of lost interest because I think they were staying to the same consistent mold, same type of music, and you know they're still making records today, but they don't have the same relevance as these guys did. This one is really pretty good for me because I like the bagpipe work by, I think it's the lead singer's Jonathan Davis that did the bagpipes, so kind of interesting. This is an original press. I don't think this guy has ever been repressed. Of course, when the CD came out, it came with multiple covers. This is kind of a shot of the different covers. And then Silver label here. Again, these 90 pressings, I have no idea where they were pressed and who pressed them, but this one isn't too bad. This one I really need to clean up a bit, because I think I've only played it like once or twice, and of course I don't have it in the MoFi sleeve yet, but one of my favorite works by Korn. This one just happens to be a promotional item. Next up is one that is pretty popular on the VC, Doom Metalish, Uncle Acid and the Deadbeats, Bloodlust, their first album, which has been out for a few years now. I really picked up on these guys by one of the early VC members who's no longer making videos, Dan in Canada. He just happened to get one of the first 50 ever pressed, and the first 50 pressed had like this blood splatter, and he was apt to show that because he got one of the first ones. And so after sampling it online, I definitely had to pick it up. It has a very Black Sabbath feel to it. Nice little gatefold. I don't think the original issue was a gatefold though. The recent issues were pressed at United, so but the originals were pressed in England, I think, because that's where the band is from. And so Bloodlust, definitely recommend it if you like Black Sabbath. Then the last thing I have to show is Mastadon, Crack the Sky, on Reprise, Frank Sinatra's label. Makes me wonder what he would think of folks like Mastadon today. Mastadon, heavy metal, very heavy, but kind of with a progress edge. I don't think this is their best album by far. But still enjoyable if you're into heavy metal with a little bit of prog. And so there you go. I think this guy was pressed at Rainbow, or Pirates pressed in San Francisco, but sounds pretty good. So there you have it, Mastadon. So thank you, Captain Howdy, for getting me on this metal kick for this week, and please shoot me a comment if anything I've said is incorrect, or you enjoy some other things that you'd recommend based on what I was showing. Please let me know. So that's all I have, and thanks for watching.